Love is in the air everywhere I look around.
Love is in the air on the board game shelves.
Hi, I'm Libby, this is Julian, and together we are BoxedMeeples. Today we are talking about two-player only games. Valentines is coming up, but these aren't necessarily super romantic games, but they're definitely two-player only.
Yes.
There's a lot of games that we like to play it at two, obviously.
Yeah, we've ruled out any games that are playable at two but aren't designed for two people.
Yeah.
So Star Wars Rebellion we talk about a lot, but that's technically 2 to 4 people. So that ruled that out, even though no one would ever play it greater than 2 players. But it says in the box more than 2, so that's ruled that out.
Yes, and we do talk about that one quite a lot.
We do.
We always play it over Christmas time and things like that. So we thought that one's had a bit of love recently, so we can pick 10 others that we really love.
Another game we're not talking about, which is very loving, is Fog of Love. Partly because we've talked about that as well quite a lot.
Yeah.
But if you don't know about that game, well, worth looking into, particularly if you're happy with playing some role-playing games and that kind of crazy shenanigans.
Yeah, we really mix it up when we were playing that one. We tried to sort of really get into being a completely different person that's not ourselves. So it ends up being more of a funny, silly experience than us worrying about whether we're going to win the game or not.
Yeah.
But
Another game we've been playing quite a lot of is Heist, but you're going to see this in a future video and you can't get it yet, so that's ruled out that.
Yes.
But what games are included in our list?
Let's get going.
So the first game I'm going for is by Scott Elms. It's called So You've Been Eaten. Now you probably know Scott Elms best for the tiny epic games. He designed all of those, and this is kind of in the same spirit of it, in that it plays quickly, but it's much more freeing. It's not limited by the size of a tiny epic box, and it's very, very weird. So in this, 2-player only, one of you is playing as the space miner who is out to collect crystals. And unfortunately, he's been eaten. But don't worry, that's all part of the plan, because the particular crystals he wants to get comes from the belly of a space monster. So one of you plays as the miner, the other plays as the space monster, and the miner's goal is to collect the crystals, the space monster's goal is to digest the miner. So it's an entirely kind of asymmetrical game where each person's doing very different things, with card manipulation, very much a push your luck game. And yeah, I just love how weird and quirky it is.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We played this first at UK Games Expo maybe almost 2 years ago now. And then I almost brought it home for you at Essen that following year because you'd fallen in love with it. But that didn't quite happen. We've managed to pick it up recently, and it's a lot of fun. So enjoying that one at the moment.
Yeah, so if you don't mind something that's a bit off-piste, a bit weird, So You've Been Eaten's a good call.
We are approaching Valentine, so I feel like it's only right to start with a Valentine-specific game. And the only one that we have is Patchwork, and we have the Valentine version. So instead of buttons, there's a few different versions of this game. I know there's like a festive one and things, but the Valentine one, you've got a lovely box of chocolates. I mean, who doesn't want a box of chocolates, right? And so it's all that patchwork goodness of choosing the polyominoes and getting them down. How many little chocolates have you got on yours? Where can you place? Who's first to fill out? Who's ahead, so then the other person gets to sort of catch up on the track and maybe take a couple of turns, things like that. All of that patchwork goodness in here, but this is a Valentine version. And it's just a great, quick, easy to table 2-player game. If you like polyominoed games, I would say it's definitely worth checking out. And this one says, for 2 lovers. So if you're thinking of a Valentine's date, you can't go wrong, right?
Yeah, but the only problem is you can't eat it.
Yeah.
Very edible.
Yeah, you might need to bring the chocolates with you for this one.
Romantic. Next 2-player game I've gone for is Hanamikoji, and I'm also including Geisha's Road in this. Now, if you don't know this game, it's basically a card manipulation game where you've got to memorise and predict what your opponent has, so you can give the Geishas the favours and have them coming over to your side of the board. Whoever has the most geishas or a certain number of geishas at a certain point wins the game. But you can only play the card you have in your hand, and the deck is shared between the two players. So it's really a case of working out which card to place when, using different card player mechanics. Some of them will be just simply reserving a card and keeping that discreet. Another will be offering 4 cards to your opponent and letting them pick 2. So there's all kinds of different conditions for each round you play, and then your opponent has the same matching conditions. And that's where the mind games comes in, because you want your opponent to pick the cards they think you don't want them to pick. While simultaneously they're trying to predict which ones you want them to pick and then choosing the other ones that they think you don't want to pick. And that's where the fun of it comes in. We've played this an awful lot.
Yeah,
we take it with us where we go to restaurants and bars and things. And as with Patchwork, very quick game to table.
Yeah.
You can play this in 20 minutes. And there's enough kind of additional expansions you can play that vary up the different conditions for the card manipulation between each round. And then, yeah, Geisha's Road adds a layer of complexity to the core kind of game, keeping in the spirit of it, but adding different elements to it to raise up. It gives it an extra 5 minutes of playtime, and it's a lot more crunchier decision-based game to do. So if you're new to it, start with Hanamikoji, then move on to Geisha's Road.
Yeah, there's some really tough decisions as to which of your options you play when in this game. So it's a lot of fun. And the cards look gorgeous.
Yeah.
So. I'm staying relatively romantic with the next pick. Paris is one of my favourite two-player games. It has sort of 2 phases in it. So you start putting out the cobbles in the streets of gay Paris. And then in the second stage, you're hoping that you're going to be able to put down the buildings that you have reserved in the first stage, as well as putting the cobbles down. And there are special action cards as well. Whilst you're doing that, it's very much you make a plan in your head in this one as to where you're going to be able to place things and how you're going to put these buildings out. And there's these lovely buildings that kind of come out and pop out. So it's quite a spectacle once you've built Paris up. But your opponent will ruin almost every plan that you have put there in stage 1, and you think, right, this will go here, this will go here, this will go here, and you sort of forget that one of the colours on the cobblestones you can both place things on, not just yours, and you think they won't come into that area even though there's a lamppost there, and lampposts mean points. If you can get your buildings around them and get all your buildings together in a nice little chain, all orderly as you've planned, but 100% your opponent will get in the way of all your plans, and then it's that challenge of how do I rethink, how can I recover, how can I best use these points. If I am able to use one of the special actions from one of the postcards, will that help me change things out and mix up my plan? There's lots going on. It looks beautiful, and I enjoy playing it with the Eiffel expansion as well, which adds even more postcards, even more fun buildings, and lots of different ways of scoring. So yeah, it's a really lovely game for 2, and you play it in the box, so that's always fun as well. The whole of the cobblestones are in the inside of this box, so nice and small play area too.
Ooh la la. Next up, I've gone for a game that's quite important to us.
Yes.
It's quite significant to us, and that's the Rocketeer Fate of the Future. Now, obviously, this is based on the early 90s. I think cinematic masterpiece that is the Rocketeer, and it's quite important to us because it is set in the location in which we got engaged. How more romantic can you get? But in this game, it's a 2-player kind of dueling game. I think there's kind of echoes of villainous about it because you are playing 3 characters. If you're the goodies, you're obviously playing as the Rocketeer, and you've got Jenny and you've got Peavy in there, and the evil Neville Sinclair and his cronies. But yeah, you're manipulating your characters around your sections of the board. Placing cards, and ultimately you need to get hold of the rocket pack, because whoever gets that at the end of the round gets a scoring card, which might be just immediate points at the end of the game, or it could be a scoring condition that multiplies your points. And in between, you are having fights, you're dueling it out while navigating around 1930s Los Angeles. So yeah, it's a beautiful game on the table. Bit underrated. Not enough people talk about this
Mm,
because I think with many IP games, they think, well, there's not going to be solid foundations here. But I found a lot of the IP games that Funko Games do are actually really, really good, and this has got
yeah.
some fantastic miniatures as well.
Yeah, and we have found this one isn't so easy to find in the UK, so there is that as well.
Yeah, worth picking up if you do see it and you like playing two-player games.
Yeah. Another IP that we absolutely adore, Star Wars. So we didn't put Rebellion in, but we've still got a Star Wars game here. And Star Wars deck building game is a great two-player game. It's a quick card game that you can play. Obviously, one of you plays the Rebels, one of you plays the Imperials, and you've both got your bases which you're needing to protect. And there's lots of different ways in which you can do that, and which you can sort of work the puzzle of it all. There's a galaxy row through the middle of you, both, and there's cards that you can choose. Some are more specifically Empire cards, some are more specifically Rebel cards, some might be ships or characters that can help. And so if you can pay for them, bring them in onto your little team, then they're going to help you out, and depending on what you're choosing will change your strategy. So one of the strategies you might have is to get a lot of blockade ships, and so your opponent can't immediately attack your base because they've got to deal with all of the things that you're putting in the way first. One of the key elements of it is this great little track here of the force, and if that favors you, if you're more in control of the dark force or the light force, then you can gain extra resources. So there's lots of things that you can be doing. The cards look great and really sort of in keeping with that Star Wars world. So I really like it when you can kind of have the story of, oh right, well, I'm bringing on a Mandalorian, or I'm doing something that we all know and love from the game, and it makes sense what that character does when you bring them into your team.
Yeah, I do love the shifting force
Hmm.
as you play through the game, that sides one way or the other, because having control of that for the majority of the game means an influx of stuff at the beginning of your turn, which helps you get more stuff, buy more stuff in the market.
Yes.
How strong is your relationship? Can it stand up to landing a plane? Now, in this game, one of you plays the co-pilot, one of you plays the pilot, and together you've got to manipulate all of the controls on your plane control panel to successfully land a plane. Now, as you read through the rules, a lot of times you'll see, and then you immediately crash and lose the game, because this
Yeah.
game is surprisingly hard. And what makes it even harder is the fact you can't communicate during a turn. So you're rolling your dice, you know roughly what you need to do, but you're largely depending on your co-player, your co-pilot, knowing what you want to do without you even telling them, because certain things you have to balance out, certain things you have to get within a certain total amount on your dice faces, and other things you just have to do before the plane hits the ground, ideally on a runway, and not not before the runway, not after the runway, and not into another plane that happens to be circling around the airport. This is a game unlike anything else we've really got on our shelves. It's very thematic, very, very tense, and thankfully over and done with in 20 minutes before your relationship ruins and crashes to the ground, much like the majority of your planes will once you've got over that kind of introductory plane mound.
But there's a lot of different runways, a lot of different challenges in there, so that you can just play again. And I think this is the kind of game that does make you want to go, right, okay, let's go on another flight straight away. So you can play and play and play, and there is a lot of variability in the box with different
There's
challenges.
so many kind of inbuilt expansions you get with
Yeah.
it, where different runways require different elements to be added into the game. Sometimes you're reserving your fuel, sometimes you're dodging a mountain. I'm sorry for the amount of fog that seems to be in London Heathrow. It's just what happens in Britain.
Next up, I've gone for quite a relaxing game, I think. Again, if you're sort of having a date night, you don't want anything maybe too aggressive, like perhaps
Landing
things
a
like,
plane.
or So You've Been Eaten, can be quite a take that feel. If you want something a little bit more gentle, a bit more relaxing, then I think Wingspan Asia, which is the two-player mode, comes in this particular box. But essentially, it's very similar to Wingspan General. But there is a different board where you'll be popping out these sort of yin yang kind of symbols on there that will be doing some little bit slightly different to the base game. But that base idea of popping out those birds into the different areas, the woodland, the wetlands, and all of that kind of thing, and building out, popping your eggs on them, and just getting at one with nature and building this birdie nature reserve. I think I don't really need to say how Wingspan plays. I think a lot of people are aware of that. But if you haven't tried the Asia variant, it does, as I say, have that 2-player only. It does also allow you to increase the player count if you have Wingspan also. So there's a few different bits that you can do in here, and of course there's new birds.
Yeah, and new eggs.
Lots of new birds.
What's great is if you haven't played Wingspan and you know you're only ever going to play it 2-player, this has got everything you need in it. So it's kind of self-contained, but also works as an expansion. So it's quite a nice, quick, cheaper entryway into Wingspan. My favourite 2-player game of last year was Boop. Absolutely love this game. I didn't realise I like those kind of 2-player chess style games where you're kind of placing a move and your opponent's doing the same thing and you're trying to work out within the confines of a board how best to win.
And well, you didn't until
I
that
didn't,
one
and then
came out.
Boop came along, and some reason bouncing cats and kittens on a bed really did it for me. But this is a fun, simple to explain, really sweet game where you're placing cats on a bed, you're booping your opponents around and also your own cats, but obviously kittens can't boop the cats, that'd be madness. Right. Ultimately, just to get a line of 3 cats in a row. It's super simple, very quick to table. We've taken it with us and we've played it everywhere we've been. We've played it by a pool, we've played it on a boat, we've played it in restaurants. There was a phase where I was playing it every single day, every chance I got. And if you enjoy this and you want to step up the complexity a little bit, there's a sequel called Boop, which is about spooky cats. And you have ghost cats in there, which just adds a layer of complexity if you kind of feel you've covered everything in Boop. But like all true kind of 2-player games, you'll find that as you play, particularly one person, you build up new strategies and you begin to predict what they're going to do and try to kind of think 4 steps ahead in these games, and it's something I absolutely adore playing.
Yeah, so it's a fun one. Last up for me is a game from the company that do all of the Undaunted series, which are also fantastic games. But the one that I'm going to talk about today is a game that we don't actually have. It's General Orders, and I played it for the first time at Essen back in October. You haven't actually played this one yet. And it was a fantastic back and forth, planning, strategic kind of, you are at war with each other, you're putting out these different troops. And it was really interesting how you sort of think, right, okay, well, I'll move in there and I'll be able to take up that area. Great. And that will give me a step forward. And then all of a sudden your opponent will do something completely unexpected, or they'll pick out a special power to be able to have an extra card or do something different. And then you think, oh no, I can't let them get ahead and take another different action. I'm going to have to chase that. So I can't do the thing that I was planning. Can I get these special action cards? Can I use them? Will that put me a foot ahead? And it was really tense between the 2 players as to what the other one was going to do, what cards they had in their hand that they could play, how far they could move, whether you were just going to kill both sides in a battle and just sort of wipe everyone out or not. Really tense, but very quick, easy to play, super small, easy for travel too. Just had a really fun experience with that one, so I'm looking forward to playing it a lot, and for us to play it together, because if you do like that tense back and forth, then that's definitely one to check out.
Well, that's been 10 2-player, specifically 2-player only board games that you can play with your loved one over on Love Day, on Valentine's Day. If you're interested in buying any of these, a good place to do so would be your friendly local game store. And our friendly local game store is Chaos Cards right here in the southeast of England. Yes. And if you want to buy from the southeast of England Chaos Cards, but you are not in the southeast of England, you can go onto their website. And if you do, there's a discount code in the description below, which you can use to save some money off at the checkout. It's a new code, so if you've used one before, you'll be able to use this one now and save yourself some money.
Will indeed. And of course, we've been Libby and Julian. We're BoxedMeeples. If you haven't subscribed already, we would love it if you would do so. And of course, we always want to hear from you, so if you've got ideas for great 2-player games, there's some that I know are really high on my list to try to get hold of to play, so they haven't been on the list, but do send your suggestions on and let us know what games that you like to play together as a 2-player only.
And as always, thanks so much for watching.
Bye.
Southeast of England.
Southeast of
East of England.
Southeast of England.
East of England.